Hello class, part 3 of lesson 18 through 20, Alchemy unit. I've got some vocabulary words that I forgot to mention last time. And so vocabulary words, we saw last lesson that we had oxygen 2 minus and magnesium 2 plus. And so magnesium lost 2 electrons to become stable and happy. Oxygen gained 2 negative electrons to become stable and happy. So whenever they become charged, whenever they gain or lose electrons, then they're no longer neutral atoms, but instead they are called ions. Ions are charged atoms, atoms with a charge. Ions are usually happy atoms, stable atoms that have lost or gained electrons so that they are like noble gases. There's also 2 other terms that we can use. All ions that are positively charged are called cations. Notice the ion word is within cation. And ions that have a negative charge are called anions. Once again, you see the word ion in there. We are going to take a look now at different compounds. Compounds that are made up of ions are called ionic compounds. So we're going to take a look at how ionic compounds form today. Ionic compounds form whenever 2 atoms come into contact with each other and one atom steals an electron from another atom. So let's take a look at a situation here. We know that everything in group 1 is going to have a +1 charge when it's happy. So lithium is going to be +1 because it has 1 outer electron. It's going to lose the outer electron to become stable. And let's look at chlorine. Chlorine has a -1 charge. And so therefore, these 2 things can link up to form a compound. There are some rules here in that we need to have a metal combining with a nonmetal. And if you remember from class, the magic line that separates the metals from the nonmetals is right here. So we need to have one thing on the left side of the line, which is a metal, combining with one thing on the right side of the line. So metals can combine with a nonmetal, and whenever a compound forms, the charge has to be equal to 0. So +1 plus -1 is equal to 0, and so these 2 things can match up and be happy and stable. So let's take a look at the picture. What's actually happening here? If we start out with lithium, lithium has 3 electrons when it's neutral. Chlorine has 17 electrons when it's neutral. 2 will go in the first. 8 will go in the second. And 7 will go in the third. Alright, so lithium wants to lose 1, so that way its first shell's full, and it's happy. Chlorine wants to gain 1, and so when these 2 things come into contact with each other, chlorine, Cl, is going to steal the electron from lithium. When this happens, lithium is no longer going to have a second energy level. Lithium will only have 1 energy level. It lost an electron, so it's going to be +1. Chlorine, the stolen electron, it is now going to be 1 minus. So that's how we get +1 for chlorine, -1 for chlorine. +1 for lithium, excuse me, -1 for chlorine. So this is a happy compound because +1 plus -1 is equal to 0. Let's take a look at a couple more complicated examples. Let's take something from group 2, something that wants to lose 2 electrons. Calcium has 2 outer electrons. Instead of drawing all the rings, I'm just going to draw the 2 outermost electrons. Over here, fluorine has 7 outer electrons. I'm not going to draw the first energy level. So what needs to happen here? Calcium could gain 6 or lose 2. It wants to lose 2. Fluorine has 7. It could lose 7 or gain 1. It wants to gain 1. So it steals calcium's. Fluorine just gained a negative electron. So now it's going to have a -1 charge. Calcium just lost a negative electron. So now it's going to have a +1 charge. The problem is it still has one more electron it wants to lose. So therefore, what needs to happen? You guessed it, we need to have another fluorine. So another fluorine atom comes in. It has 7 outer electrons. It wants one more. Calcium still wants to lose one. So fluorine is going to steal this electron from calcium, and it now has 8 electrons. So it has a -1 charge. Calcium just lost a second electron, so it's going to be +2. And so everything's happy. 2 plus a -1 plus a -1 is equal to 0, so it is neutral. If we want to write this out, we would need 1 calcium and 2 fluorines. So the formula would be CaF2. So that is the chemistry behind it. We're going to pause here with the end of step 3. We're going to do part 4 to get us through lesson 20 and introduce lesson 21.